Alrighty, everybody, welcome in. My name is Joe, and today we're going to play some chess. So let's see if we can. I was kind of hoping we could get into this King's Indian type defense, kind of put our notes to use. We'll just keep developing. Going to keep in mind that we have this king breaker pawn if we ever need it. So my opponent is playing basically a Queen's Gambit type setup. We are ready to castle. I'm just looking to make sure there's nothing else kind of out of the ordinary here. We could go ahead and push d6 now to limit this this bishop's influence. If these two team up, it's not really that much of a concern, is it? Yeah, let's do it. What the heck? So we're just limiting this bishop's influence. We are ready to castle now. We're stopping any advances in the middle. But this is that King's Indian defense that we talked about, right? So this is us playing that. I don't know my opponent's exact opening, right? This is some kind of, like I said, some kind of Queen's Gambit, but I only know that from me playing it. This bishop out leads me to think it's also some kind of, I don't know, English or London maybe. I don't know enough about these kind of systems to understand that. Normally when I see the Queen's Gambit, I see a knight rotate around first, so I don't know. But yeah, here we go. Now the knight's outside the pawn chain. My opponent can close that pawn chain at any point in time. Let's go ahead and get castled. And then we just keep developing. Where does this knight want to go? I don't know. All right, this is going to be a weakness for my opponent. Well, I shouldn't say a weakness because it's covered right now. Depending on where my opponent develops this, I've always got options of this to try to bust open the center. We can pin this knight if we want. We could develop. All right, so I'm looking at developing my bishops. That way I can park my knight here for the time being. Question is, where do we want our bishop to go? It's got to go to one of these three squares because I want the d7 for my knight for right now. You know, we could start here with the idea that as we rotate our knight, maybe we get double pressure along that pawn. Now, obviously, all my opponent has to do is push, and that takes care of that. All right, so now we transition to our middle game, and we got to keep our eye open for any tactics to see if we see anything out of the ordinary. We want to make sure that we continue to defend our pieces. We scan the board, all four quadrants, to make sure that we don't miss anything. We are developed in our King's Indian defense type structure. We are content, right? We've made it this far. We've played great chess. There's no danger yet. So this is my tactical shot. But what happens if my opponent pushes? I think I'll grab with my pawn, noting that that makes my c-pawn a huge weakness. But this bishop will sort of be pinned, but not really because everything's defended. So yeah, let's go for it. Let's go for it. So now we have a double attack here. My opponent's only got this defended once. He'll either have to push it or push a pawn. With our c-pawn eventually becoming a weakness down the road, should we defend it? Probably. We can get our rook into the game at the same time. I think that's a good move. I think that's a good move. It feels comfortable, doesn't it? All right, this is possibility going to become a weakness. You know, if these pawns start getting traded off in the middle of the board. All right, from here, let's see what our opponent does. Our opponent's got lots of obvious moves ready to go. You know, any of these in the castle. I can still rotate a rook if I need to. In fact, that's probably my other move, is get my other rook involved. I'm going to get my rook probably all the way over here to d8. The idea being that, number one, I want to clear my fianchetto, right? So if this is the fianchettoed bishop, one of the things I like to do is I like to clear the space out. If an attack comes down here and I want to move my bishop out of the way and not trade, I don't want my rook to be a target. Can't get infiltration there yet. We could give up, right? We are gonna, my opponent is gonna get one of our bishops. I was looking to see if there's a better way to trade off for this. Now let's just go with our plan. I think we're okay. We'll capture back this way. Every piece has now been developed. Okay, so that's an interesting strike after putting the knight here. Are there any tactics? Right, like grab, and then my opponent grabs back, and then opens up a attack on something. I don't see any tactics. The knight jumps up. No, everything's defended. That would give me a double attack on here, but I still have this lingering. So let's go with this game plan, trading off this way if we have to. And like that, my bishop is trapped. Oh, I didn't even see that. Okay, that's fine. That's gonna give us this option. All right. If my opponent doesn't take with that knight, if my opponent takes with anything else, with the bishop or with this knight, then we pick up material at the end of the line. But my opponents at this level, are usually not so talented. So we were able to survive that attack. That's good. That's very good. Now I'm going to be bringing this bishop all the way home, probably. I might trade it off if I get the opportunity. I doubt it. That comes with an attack on the queen. So we need to take back. Just making sure I'm not getting forked anywhere. But now we have two things under attack. I don't know that my opponent can save both. So we might be able to get somewhere on this as well. Instead of just holding for a defensive position, maybe we've got a little bit of an offensive attack now. Now this is defended. Let's go ahead and... The only thing I'm thinking is I have seen positions where giving up this bishop is a bad idea. So I'm kind of tempted just to bring it back. Now let's just do it. Let's make the obvious move. Now I kind of want to. All right, shoo. This is an undefended pawn, and it is within knight fork distance. So, that being said. I probably need to make this move. That probably has to happen. Yeah, just because I don't want this pawn to be too much of a weakness. That's defended for now, so we can go ahead and start rotating this guy back into the game somehow. Really like to open up my rooks now, please. So now my opponent has a double attack. Well, it has an attack here that I need to handle. Is this too much? Is that too aggressive? So these are my options right now. These are my candidate moves. All right, we're doing it. All right, so now we are into a bit of a situation. And I'm starting to run out of time. That's okay. Look, we've played this very well. I'm happy the way we played this. Right, there are some serious threats that my opponent has put up. Namely this queen coming in. Basically what would happen is my opponent would capture, 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 and then the queen comes down to here. So we got to keep the queen off of this. And now the only way to do that would be to trade queens, and I'm happy to trade queens at this point in time. These guys have created a battery. That might be too slow. I might just be too slow here. Yeah. Yep, that might just be way too slow. Is there anything I can do? No. I was hoping I could get a check in. He hides here. And then I don't have this check. We're in the danger zone now. I mean, my opponent has, 4 attackers, and I don't have enough defenders. So this rook is going to have to come here to the open file now for sure. I think my opponent can simply just bring the queen into play, and I am running out of room real fast. Yep, exactly. So notice this is attacked twice. I have 2 defenders right now, but I don't have any follow-up. We got to bring a defender back. This is no longer an attack anymore. This is a full-on defense. All right, we'll have to stick our knight here in order to cut off the queen's influence. But we do have 2 defenders in this square, and that's important. We can't move one of the defenders just yet. This is why sometimes the more advanced we get, and I'm not advanced yet, but the more advanced we get, it helps to start looking at the squares instead of the pieces, right? In my earlier days, I would have happily stuck a rook there to challenge, but I need these 2 defenders on that square. Now, one of the concerns I have is what happens if the rook goes here? Notice this is defended, and if the rook comes here, or if the rook comes here, now if the rook here is not so bad, but the rook to f7, I don't know what I'm going to do. Well, I guess I could bring I guess the queen can come here in that case. I've got the back row defended. I don't have back rank weaknesses. Okay. Yeah, this is one I was a little bit concerned about, but because then this comes with check as well. If I go here, then he comes with a check, and then I have to trade. I don't think I have it, guys. I just don't. I think my opponent's attack is too much. I think this was just too slow, and I should have brought the knight back way sooner. Having this knight here is a helpful tactic, but it's ooh, my. I don't even get to win the rook. There's literally nothing I can do except capture this knight. This is essentially a smothered mate. Right, the king can't go anywhere. At least if I'd been able to take the rook off the board earlier, right, then could have traded for the rook. And there was, man, yeah, that's rough. Would have been nice to be able to trade for the rook and a piece, but my opponent just basically goes up a whole rook at this point in time. Probably here, sacrifice the rook, and then bring the queen in. The knight is pinned now, so the knight can't help out with the defensive formation. It's just too many threats. Nope, that puts us right under. I mean, I've got nothing here. My opponent just grabs. You know, I can't even take because he can take back. I can't even get a passed pawn out of this. This game is over. I've got nothing. I'm just pushing pawns now at this point in time. This game's over. All right. Well, let's see what my opponent decides to do and how they decide to push it for the win. I mean, I just don't have anything. Yeah, see, now he can move the rook. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, there, that was just too slow. It was back here. It was just too slow of a move. We go all the way back here. Yep, this pawn move right here. Yep, look at that. Exactly what I said. Exactly how I called it. Ugh, this pawn push was just way too slow. Allow the rook to infiltrate like it did. Huge mistake, huge. But you could see even here, even being up material, black is up material and just unable to so we'd gotten into a really good position here. But then we just allowed our opponent right back into the game. Yeah, this whole outside pawn push, just an absolute mistake on my part. Allowing my opponent to get into the game, to get his pieces on some really interesting squares, and then yeah, this infiltration, complete downfall. Complete downfall, yeah, and at this point in time, like, this would have been a better move because oh, I can't, why can't I? Oh, it's a double check. Of course it is, it's a double check. Why wouldn't it be? Yeah, that was just too many attackers, and all my defenders are on the wrong side of the board. So back here, yeah, back here, I had this idea of an outside attack, and maybe this is the time. Maybe now. Yeah, even then the engine doesn't love it. I mean, it loves it as much as my actual move. All right, so the engine says the advantage for black is at depth 20, 2.5, 2.9. At depth 20 at 2. Okay, so still 2.2. So still a better move the way I did, but yeah, absolutely. I should have just, now that you know, I have no more bishops, this fianchetto structure is no longer needed. I could have looked at pushing my, oof, engine hates that one. Yeah, engine hates that, wow. Right, because there's no pawns on this side, but at least this is defended. All right. Well, we got ourselves into a good position, and then once again, we pooched the endgame really badly. We just, this outside pawn attack, I had to recognize that I'm the defending player, not the attacking player, and I had to recognize that this is just way too slow. With this many attackers, I needed to get some defenders back, you know. In fact, right here would have been a great opportunity. I even said I wanted to see if I can get my knight back into the game. I don't know why I didn't. I mean, that would have been a fantastic move compared to the stuff that I did. Ah, well, it happens. So we pooched the endgame. I keep looking for something, and there's just nothing here. Absolutely nothing here. My opponent just destroyed me, and that did exactly what they needed to do. Yeah, like I said, getting the queen... right here, I would have gone... Well, I guess you can't go here. All right, never mind. Let's go back to the very beginning. Let's look at the opening. All right, so we played a King's Indian. Well, we'll leave the analysis on. What the heck? I don't know this move from the Queen's Gambit lines. Like I said, I know this move, I know this move, I know this move. Getting the bishop out this early, I don't normally see a lot of, but it's possible. But even then, like, black is 100% in this game. Our d6 move was a good move, so we picked that one up correctly. So I feel good about that. We talked about where to develop our bishop. We never figured out exactly the right spot, but this felt fine. So the engine wants me to make a break in the center. My queen is defended. My opponent's queen is also defended, so I don't really see too much of an advantage there. Plus, like I said, this goes back to, well, I guess that pawn's not there anymore, Joe. I'll say that C pawn becomes a weakness, but not if that's the pawn you push. Boink. So the engine wants me to put my bishop on the f5 square as opposed to where I put it. Yeah, it says white has an advantage here. Because with the queen out, the queen defends. When the knight moves, wherever the knight moves to, you have access to this pawn down here, the b pawn, with the queen involved. Yep, that is a threat that we always have to keep an eye out for at some of these mid games. You know, when the queen starts to roam, anytime you develop your bishops, right? If you go back to the home screen, your bishops are defending pawns. And so anytime you move your bishops, you undefend those pawns, so you have to keep an eye on them, right? In this case, yes, I know I'm undefending my e-pawn, but it is defended by my queen, and I'll have other pieces, and it'll help out. The same with the central pawn. So the two central pawns usually are working for you. Sometimes they're up the board, but these wing pawns, when you move those bishops, you have to watch out for them. And in this case, notice there's nothing left to defend my b-pawn. And so that's kind of a theme that you have to be careful of. At least on the side where you castle, your king is helping out. On the side where you don't castle, that wing pawn that the bishop was defending does become a weakness, so keep in mind, all right? So yeah, as this game developed, I felt really comfortable. We had a plan, we made some moves, right? This rook move I felt really good with. The engine absolutely hates it. Shows you how much I know. Yeah, see, I was looking at this break, you know, as being a possibility, but we looked at it from a different point of view. We looked at it for when our opponent makes the break, that c-pawn becomes a weakness, so we defended the c-pawn. Engine hated that, didn't it? So I felt really happy with all of our moves, but the engine says that white has an advantage here. I don't know what that advantage is, but the engine says it. So it must be true, right? Yeah, wow. Wow, white has with nothing being traded off, white has a positional advantage of almost 3 points. That's incredible. That's right. This is where we had the, yep, this is where our bishop was trapped. Right, exactly. Our bishop was trapped this whole time. So that's something I'm going to have to look at, because I don't know in these kind of mid games how to avoid that. Granted, we traded off nothing, and maybe, you know, maybe it would have been better for me a long time ago to push my e-pawn in order to have the option to push, you know, even further. So maybe my e-pawn becomes a weapon there. I'm not certain. That's interesting though. Yep. So this is where I lost material, but I was fortunate in that my opponent basically, oh, no, because I was saying they could take with the knight, but the knight defends. And yeah, white still has a huge advantage, even losing out on this, because you've given the queen access here. Interesting. Wow, white has a huge positional advantage. Okay, well, we went for this, and the opponent made the one move they couldn't make. The one move they couldn't make. I saw the other move, but for some reason I didn't realize that also covered the knight. But and then now black is up, and yeah, unfortunately just unable to get ourselves back in the game. I should take it back. I was in the game, but from here, everything just fell apart. I will have to go back and really study. And this is notes for all of us, right? I enjoyed playing this. I thought this was fun, right? This intrigued me, so I want to play more of these games. So I'm going to look for opportunities when opponents lead off with something other than the king's pawn. I'm going to look for opportunities to play my King's Indian. And so I will now have to go, not have to, one of the things I could do is to go look up King's Indian games and then look up some, lines and, some theory and say, oh, okay, theory says that in the King's Indian, the light square bishop is a liability. So find a way to trade it off immediately. I don't know if it says that or not, but after playing this game, I'm starting to think maybe that's a possibility. And so I'll now go, look up King's Indian defense, light square bishop, and look up theory on that. Or maybe I'll get a course on Chessable if you want to do that on the King's Indian. Or maybe I will look up famous King's Indian games and see, what did pros at the highest level do with their light square bishop? I don't know. I'll have to go look up some of the top players and look at, results of the top tournaments and see who's playing the King's Indian defense. Or even, at my level, even any variation of this kind of structure for black. That's sort of a King's Indian system, even if it's not an exact KID. But yeah, so go look up these games to find out, okay, what are they doing with their light square bishop? What are they doing with their queenside knight? Mine sat here and then came this way and did nothing all game. So maybe I need to look that up and figure that out. I'm not going to do that today. Right? I'm going to keep playing some more games and see if maybe I can learn things on my own just as I go about. But also because I'm not a memorizing kind of guy. I'm not good at memorizing. And if I have to try to memorize all the variations of the King's Indian, I'm going to lose stuff. And so, I'll look up, are there any, I'll look up generic theory on, how to develop the queen side in the King's Indian defense. I'll look up to see if there's any traps that I need to be aware of. And then I'll go back and I'll just play a bunch of games and try to learn processes. If you're the kind that's better at memorizing, 100% go look up King's Indian defense and go look up variations on, where to stick this bishop. Does this bishop need to get fianchettoed out this way? Does this bishop just need to get traded off immediately? Is it better just to sacrifice this bishop to open up? I don't know. That's what I'm saying. Go look it up and find out what the different variations of these setups are, right? I play the King's Indian with a d6 pawn move, but you could play it with a d5, and there are variations of this that are known as the Grunfeld. Grunfeld is a very solid defense. I think it's d5 that makes it the Grunfeld. I don't know if this is going to show us or not now. It just says King's Indian defense. But you can look at variations with d5 even. Notice that this pawn is defended, so there's no threat yet. If this gets traded off, that's fine. Everything's defended. So there are options, right? And that's what this is all about, is options. So go play some chess. Try out the KID, the King's Indian. See if you like it. And if you absolutely hate it, we'll find some other variations. I've got playlists on the Alekhine, Alekhine. I think I've even got playlists on the French defense, on different variations, just things that you could do with the black pieces. But this is all about this standard opening, this slight advanced variation of the King's Indian defense, where we fianchetto the bishop, we castle kingside, and then we start to develop from there. All right, this was fun, even though I lost, which sucks, but it was still fun. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.